Can I just make sure you guys can hear me?
Oh, thank you. It's always a good idea. This is like it's the first time it's been like.
Hey, perfect. Cool, thanks.
Hi, Sally. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I can, thanks, Gloria. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Sweet.
So it is 6:34, and this is the Parks and Rec and Facilities meeting, starting up here with all trustees present. So we are doing kind of a continuation of our meeting on Thursday, since we didn't have time to cover this topic, but I really wanted to get in front of you all the capital improvements program projects that the citizens provided input on, and there is a memo in the board packet for tonight for you all to look at. But basically, we had 83 participants come into town hall and vote for their favorite project, and they were given $5, and they were allowed, or $5 town dollars, I should specify, and they were putting them in the boxes that they wanted to prioritize. So the winner of that is the Silverton Perimeter Trail with 160 town bucks in it. And then I went down to the Riverwalk with $141 in it. And then vehicular and pedestrian street signage. So I really wanted to get this in front of you all as we look to create a capital improvements program out of our committed to future capital line item that we already have in our budget, which is 25,000, and contributing another 25,000 to that this year. Any thoughts on the results?
I guess first is so the idea would be to grow this to $50,000 this year.
Yes.
And then in the memo for the town meeting, it suggested picking the top 3.
Yes.
From these to then begin planning and spending that 50,000 or a portion of that $50,000 on planning.
Correct. And to start that process off is creating that resolution for that line item so that it's secured as what that funding is to be used for. Because when I found that line item, we couldn't find any supporting resolutions of why it was established or what it was to be used on.
Can you hear us, Sally?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me as well? Oh. Nope.
I think we have fixed the technical issues.
All right, Sally, can you hear us again? Excellent.
Game on.
I can.
We have two heaters in here that broke our circuit, or shorted our circuit.
There you go.
There we go. So slight hiccup there. I think we were on thoughts.
Stay warm, stay warm.
And did you get the next steps for this would be creating a resolution for the top three priorities potentially, but I wanted to kind of run that all by you.
Yep, I got it. Thanks.
Okay.
Cool. So then my next question is there any reason that some of these are more, we'd like compound the benefit by doing some of these together more than others? So like, even though the top three in terms of support with the town bucks are Perimeter Trail, Riverwalk, and then much further below signage. Would either Mullis Lodge or Urban Trail Network make more sense to do alongside the top two priorities of Silverton, Perimeter Trail, and Riverwalk than one of the lesser vote getters?
I mean, that's certainly up for you all to decide. It was just a suggestion that we take the top three. But obviously the Urban Trail Network would be part of possibly our River Walk, possibly our Perimeter Trail. But I do see those kind of as separate entities too. So just wanted to, that's exactly why I'm passing it by you guys.
Well, I guess so to ask that question more specifically, Silverton, Perimeter Trail, and Riverwalk seem to be fairly overlapping potentially with the Urban Trail Network.
Right.
And so does it make sense to choose vehicular and pedestrian street signage over the Urban Trail Network with only a delta of 9 votes relative to the 110 vote margin to numbers 1 and 2? If like the planning, like if we hire an engineer, for example, to help us with like our trail networks for the Perimeter Trail and the Riverwalk, would it be like an incremental cost to add Urban Trail Network to those two, as opposed to waiting on Urban Trail Network, doing it later and seeing like many duplicative costs to do that one as a standalone later? And so my question is like, does it make sense for it to be a separate CIP, or should that be combined with Riverwalk or Perimeter Trail? And so we should really pick the top 4, or I don't know. I'm just looking,
Yeah.
I'm looking as like, is there a more efficient way to look at this?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts.
Cool.
I'm kind of on the similar mindset. There's a really clear top 2 and the other 3 are, there's no clear third one.
Or do we even just want to focus on the top 2?
Well, that's what I was thinking, is either focus
Yeah,
on the,
that's,
or does it make more sense to, like Shane, you were saying, roll in the Urban Trail Network into that just for the sake of ease?
Sally?
I was thinking kind of the same as Jordan, with looking at the Urban Trail Network as either something potentially that we just need to understand with a little bit more depth, because it was its own entity when people were voting. So trying to understand, what made that different than the other two in terms of like what type of investment that looks like. So when I looked at these votes, I saw it as there's a clear top 2, and then the third was a distant third. So potentially looking at rather than sort of forcing ourselves or arbitrarily saying we want to look, we want to fund 3, doing these top 2 really, really well, or really, really well funded, and then moving on. But if urban trail is something that fits easily into these other 2, and I'm missing something, or, it is its own standalone CIP project. So my assumption was that there was something significantly different from the other 2 that set it apart as a 3rd.
Well, I see.
So I was going to say, let's consider just the 2.
Yeah, and I see the perimeter trail and the Riverwalk overlapping. The urban trail network, I don't see as much overlapping with those 2. And so I do see it kind of as a separate entity. And the vehicular and pedestrian street signage, it could be an opportunity to put funds towards that, since we do also have funds in our conservation trust fund for things like trail networks. So it might be an opportunity to start planning for that vehicular and pedestrian street signage, as well as if there are other funding opportunities for the perimeter trail and the Riverwalk. And that was kind of our justification, was going with the top 3.
I feel like the urban trail network adds a lot of value to the perimeter trail,
Okay.
because that's a lot of the connectors.
Mhm.
Potentially, or it's more access, like, if it's hard to get to the perimeter trail from 2/3 of town, then that's at least the thought process that led me to think that maybe those should be
Okay.
done in a similar time frame.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking about is that the vehicular and pedestrian street signage is like the least individual benefit. So like when people are thinking about what they want to see improvements to town, like the signage is more of a municipal need than a amenity.
Mhm.
And all these other ones are more like an amenity. So I actually was surprised that the signage did better than the Molis Lodge and the Urban Trail Network. And I think it's hard to compare those as like projects.
Mhm. Yeah.
At least it doesn't help us get
Yeah,
closer.
I saw the first 2. I saw the first 2 that got the most votes as very community based in terminology for the community, and the signage as something that I think benefits visitors to our town and also potentially businesses in our town, and that the benefit to town isn't so much in like an amenity as it is in just clarity for people coming. Because I think when you live in the community, you don't necessarily need a lot of signage.
Probably very true. I was just trying to tell Clayton an address, and then we're like, no, it's just called this. Like, I don't know where it's at exactly.
That's the yellow
Well, and I'm
house.
not saying that that's not yeah. I mean, it's not that it's not a benefit to the community to have good signage. Certainly we want people to feel welcome and comfortable and know where they're going, and that benefits everyone. I think from the perspective of decision making, that was a sorting tool I had kind of going in my head.
And this isn't to say that these wouldn't be funded. This is just to say that we would set aside a certain amount, our capital improvements fund, towards this.
And so the goal of this conversation is to provide some more framework for the trustee discussion in a few minutes.
So the trustee discussion will happen on the 14th. What I'm
Okay.
trying to do is get enough feedback from everyone so I can create a resolution that has the identified projects in them to start the capital improvements program line item.
Does including the wayfinding component in the CIP priorities have any impact on our entrance monument timeline or
No.
scope? Does the Blair Street improvements have any impact on the wayfinding master plan implementation?
I mean, yes, it would as far as like street signage goes, and it would also probably contribute to our urban trail network as well. I see where you're going.
The only one we haven't talked about is Molis. Which received the least votes, but I don't know that that means from the town's perspective that we shouldn't also pursue it, because that's also one of our largest revenue generating assets.
Mhm. And so the way these projects were picked was from all of our existing plans to help prioritize from our existing plans and kind of the next steps in our existing plans. There is funding, like Molis does, it's its own enterprise fund, right? So it's separated out from the general fund and it carries a fund balance. So there are ways to fund that outside of the general fund.
Well, I'm supportive of drafting the resolution to add to the budget an additional $25,000 to pursue 2 to 4 of these items.
Okay.
Is that enough direction for you, Gloria?
And I'd kick it to the board to decide which of the 5 became those 2 or 4 priorities.
Okay. All right. So we will ask the board on what the final resolution will say.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, what do you guys think?
If that's the recommendation, we can totally do that.
I'm open to hearing what the other board members have to hear. I feel like I'm leaning towards the perimeter trail and Riverwalk as the top 2 and just focusing on those 2 and leaving the rest for the moment, but
Okay.
I could be swayed.
Sally?
I'm with Jordan. I think I like and you, Shane, I think it's a good idea to put it before the whole board. If it were up to me tonight and you needed the direction in the next 8 minutes, I would say that the overwhelming support was for the top 2 choices, the perimeter trail and the Riverwalk, and the others were distant. And the Molis project is so disconnected from those other projects. You know, it would be something so completely different to really just, I think, be a standalone thing, which brings me back to the top 2 that have overwhelming support.
All right. Well, I have my marching orders then, and we can, if you all are okay with moving on to the next meeting in 8 minutes.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just wanted to continue that conversation. All right, so we will start our regular meeting at 7 o'clock, which is in 7 minutes and 8 minutes according to my.
Cool.